if somebody were to go to gardenforwildlife.com, this is going to be a gardenforwildlife.com. You've built this site, you're educating people on, native plants. I want to kind of do an extension of what you talked about earlier, as far as the multidimensional perspective of gardens and thinking about plants and insects and everything differently. What is, we're going to do a mini business course, 3 parts. So what are 3 things that you want maybe somebody who is either, new to your site or advanced going to your site to get out of your site? Number 1.
Well, the first thing is that, so I described the problem that people face when it comes to native plants and gardening as kind of 3 steps. It's awareness, education, and access. So we solve all 3 in one place, because awareness is, again, you have to learn about native plants. If you're new on the journey, most people don't understand why native plants are important. They think plants are plants, right? So I'll come back to that. The second one is, once you know, oh, I got to buy native plants, and it's getting more and more coverage in the media. If you do Google search on the incidence of terms, it's trending upward in the right direction, and it spikes every spring because that's when people garden. But education is what's native to me. And this is really important, because just saying native plants isn't enough. And there are lots of people who sell native plants, but actually they're just native plants, but they're not native to your area. So you buy them, they're still the wrong plant to put in. Native has to be native to your specific area. They're the plants that evolve for that area to support the insects and birds of that area. And often over tens of thousands of years, or even longer. And everybody knows about the monarch butterfly disappearing. That's because we got rid of the milkweed. That's like the most extreme case, because its caterpillars can only eat one kind of plant. That's it. So when milkweed's gone, so are monarchs. But education, the way we solved it is, and this is why National Wildlife Federation is the one that built this, is they have a database of every single native plant, tree, shrub, and flower, perennial flower in the US at the zip code level. So when you come to our site, the first thing you do is you punch in your zip code, and you're only allowed to purchase what's native to where you are. And that's all you see. And so it takes out that work, right? Because friction's a big part of the challenge in a business process. And then the last one is access, right? You click buy, and the stuff shows up on your doorstep via FedEx. And then all you got to do is dig a hole and stick it in the ground, you're done. So that's kind of the arc of how we solve that. But breaking into 3 pieces. So first is that awareness, education, access. The next one is a different kind of education, which is financial education, because a lot of people don't realize, if you just did a side-by-side comparison of the annual that you would buy at like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and one of our plants, you'd say, oh, well, this is twice as expensive as this one. Why would I buy this instead? It's like, well, here's the reason why. Because perennials come back every year, and they come back bigger and more beautiful, right? Whereas annuals, every year you got to dig a new hole, put it in there. So it's your labor and time, in addition to you have to keep throwing away the plant and buying a new one. So they're actually cheaper as a total cost of ownership point of view, and less labor. So you get to enjoy your garden instead of spending time digging and planting, which actually most people don't enjoy nearly as much as they think they do. I mean, I know I'd buy plants and then I just look at them. So that's the second piece, is understanding the economics of why perennials are better. And the third one is a bigger economic question, which is, for a lot of people, I'll give you an example. If any of your listeners have problems with, for instance, water drainage whenever it rains in their area. I live in Maryland. We get big thunderstorms, and that water goes rushing down to the big storm drains and off to the Chesapeake Bay. That's part of the reason that happens. It happened when I grew up in Southern California as well, right? Because if you look at turf, grass, the roots only go 4 to 6 inches deep. It's not very deep. But native perennial plants, their roots go as much as 15 feet down. And that's really good, because what it does is it opens up the ground. Because under grass, the ground is hard packed, so the water can't be absorbed, and so it runs down to the storm drains and carries all the pollutants and stuff with it. But when you have the opened up ground, the water can be absorbed. Why is that important for homeowners? Well, any homeowner who's ever had standing water or had things like water damage or flooding areas, or whatever else in their yard, putting in a rain garden is a great way to save you a lot of hassle. And in certain places, like where I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, they actually pay me to put the garden in, because it actually helps them meet their environmental requirements around runoff. And so the county has approved to give me $7,500 to put in native plants in my yard. I mean, it's a free garden, right?
Yeah, I love it. I wish my dad were alive to co-host this with me today. He would have loved it. Yeah.
I'm sure I would have loved talking with him about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have. I mean, I grew up where, we had grapevine. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, but we had this huge backyard and common areas in our backyard. Um, we had strawberries and grapes and raspberries and apple trees and a huge garden. I mean, we grew everything. My dad grew everything.
Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You see, you'd have tons of stuff growing there. Yeah.
Tons. I mean, we had tons, and he did it all by himself. I mean, it was, yeah. And my brother and I can't do any of it. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah.